The European Union is one of the largest economies on earth, due in part to it comprises of some of the most richest and advanced countries. Their shared currency, the euro, is a world reserve currency. These two factors allow them to stand out as a major world power. When they express this power, it's not through war or physical threats, but through soft power or diplomacy. This has allowed them to enjoy more than 60 years of peace. Some of their institutions stand as a model for others to follow. They have one of the best welfare systems on earth. The majority of nations in the EU are some of the least corrupt places. All of this no doubt contributes to why they have some of the happiest places on earth. So why headlines like these popping up? Is the European Union really about to collapse? And if it does, what will happen afterwards? Before we figure out how stable it is, we need to know exactly what the European Union is. This is it right here. It's a little bit complicated because it's made up of so many different institutions. The main ones are these: the Council, the Commission, the Parliament, the Eurozone, and the Court of Justice. This sounds like it have a governmental structure, but it's not. The European Union cannot levy taxes, and the individual countries within it have their own sovereignty. It's more like a bunch of rules that each country agrees to follow. It's not an international organization like the UN. It's more like an entity that puts in place rules and enforces it with the authority given to it by each member country. So why would a country agree to follow these rules? It is because the European continent, like every other place on earth, has never been a place of peace for too long. Here's a list of wars that they have fought throughout the centuries. In order for peace to be achieved among nations, there need to be some common interests among them, a mutually beneficial relationship for each other. Throughout the centuries, the different European powers have tried this, but it never held a peace for too long. The European Union is the iteration that we have now. What it does is take pieces from all the other agreements and try to make them better. What are some of the benefits that they get from this agreement? These are some of the major ones: political cooperation, free trade, a shared currency, its citizens are allowed to travel and work freely across each other's borders, and of course, the security among its partners. All of these benefits are what hold the EU together. Why? Because of the level of peace that it brings. You see, peace is the best time to grow an economy due to the stability that it holds. The reason why the stock market goes crazy when events like this occurs, it is because of the level of uncertainty that takes place. The same with war. You're not going to build a new factory if you know that tomorrow there's a possibility that it might be bombed. In order for you to grow an economy, you need stability. The Europeans knows all too well why this is so. When wars were going on between each country, each of them needed to be self-sustaining, meaning that if you could not have built or accessed something within your own borders, you needed to do without it, thus limiting your ability to grow. The greatest benefits that the EU offers is the ability to allow countries to share and work together peacefully. An example of this: instead of spending decades mining, designing, and building your new Bugatti in France, what you do is import the steel from Italy, have a German design it, and then build it in Moleskine. When you complete the building process and now it's time for it to be sold, you don't have to worry about converting your customers' currencies. Neither concern yourself with tariffs or import-export fees. The European Union makes it easy for trade to happen easily for countries within its borders, and difficult for competitors outside of it. If your designer needs to come to France, visa application is non-existent. Simply jump on a plane and fly there. And the best part, of course, if you were the French government, there is no need for you to set up 6 different border checkpoints. All of these are some amazing benefits, giving them the ability to become world-class, bringing an abundance of wealth, and contributing to its citizens' happiness. So why are some saying that it will fall apart? It is because its greatest benefits is also some of its greatest weaknesses. Look at cross-border work, for example. Citizens within the EU can move to any country and work there with a relative amount of ease. The problem that creates is that those from poor EU nations move to more lucrative ones. This is great for those looking to improve their lives. The issue is the majority of those who move are often the most skilled and educated ones. They need to be able to speak multiple languages and have more academic qualifications because these are the ones that companies will quicker accept. This process is called brain drain. The people who are needed to build and uplift an economy are the ones who are leaving for others. For example, a biotech engineer that is living in Latvia can simply move to Germany. Companies in Latvia will have to do without the best employees working for them, or stretch their budget to pay them more. Now expand this across all sectors and all fields among all countries, and now you can understand why the GDP numbers for some countries are higher than others, and why those equalities are difficult to change. Another main problem is the euro. Because the euro is the second biggest currency in the world, it has a ton of benefits, due to in part that so many countries uses it and there's a lot of trust in it. The problem that it solves is that it makes trade and commerce among countries easier. If the euro did not exist, each country would have to hold multiple other countries' currency in reserve. If they ever run out of a specific currency, it can make trade difficult. They may not be able to access things of vital importance or even pay back their deficits. And if each of these countries print their own currency, the value would not equal that of the euro. The problem that comes up is when one country is not responsible with their finances. It can infect the entire system.
We started calling what's happening now the Eurozone debt crisis, essentially in May 2010, which is when Greece received its first bailout funded by the International Monetary Fund and Eurozone countries. And since then, the crisis has spread throughout the Eurozone to several other countries, Ireland, then Portugal, now Spain and Cyprus, and reaching Italy, and has mutated from a strictly sovereign debt government crisis to a banking crisis and a sort of sectoral crisis.
The Eurozone crisis was so bad that it called into question the very fabric of a single currency. Why? Because how the EU is governed, it's one policy for all countries. The disadvantage of that is that it doesn't fit a country's individual economic conditions. In Greece, for example, if they had been able to devalue their currency, they may have been able to weather the economic turmoil better. Say they were able to devalue it by 20%. The products that they produce is now 20% cheaper, attracting more customers. Those going on vacation just got a 20% discount, naturally giving them a competitive edge. But because they were using the euro, it made it difficult and even prolonged the crisis. Here's something that may seem weird. Even though each country is using the exact same currency, the inflation rate within these countries are vastly different, because a policy that may work with one country will not be able to work for all. When it comes to free trade, tensions started when the EU allowed farming products from Ukraine to enter its borders. This did benefit Ukraine greatly, but it affected the EU farmers, as they weren't able to produce things cheaply as the Ukrainian farmers were. While it's good that they help Ukraine, it's causing other sectors to suffer. And finally, possibly the biggest problem of them all, the political cooperation was supposed to make things easier for each member. For the most part it has. But due to the vast amount of inequality among the nation, some places think that they are being taken advantage of. Western and northern nations tend to be richer than southern and eastern ones. And what these countries are now able to realize is, the political affairs of one country affects those of another. Take Ireland for example. It is a tax haven that allows capital to come to them. This takes away money from poorer parts of the EU, money that is needed for them to take care of their citizens and to run the government. These governments will have to go into debt to pay for these things. Countries cannot simply copy the tax policies of others. Conditions vary greatly from country to country. Another rift that is occurring right now is the Green New Deal. Trying to protect the environment is great, but having a strict timeline with a strict mandate that each country is expected to meet in times of economic uncertainty is unrealistic. So, after considering all of this, will it collapse? Maybe, but it's unlikely. Europe has become a more wealthier place in the process because of the peace that it has. They have enjoyed a higher level of prosperity. And plus remember, the EU is made up of democracies. So it's not one person at the top deciding whether to stay or to leave. It's up to the people within the countries themselves to make that decision. Yes, the EU has its problems, but there's a lot of benefits that it brings, especially for the younger generation that grew up with it. Someone from Portugal can travel all the way to Estonia without hitting a roadblock. They get to experience different food, different cultures, different traditions along the way. Younger ones feel more part of the European community, so to think that they will just simply want to pull away from this is unlikely. Because even in Britain, where they voted for Brexit, it is reported that there is a lot of people that regretted the decision to do so, and they have now experienced the effects of not being part of the European community. Given the benefits that most enjoy, what is most likely going to happen is a restructuring, trying to find ways to fix things that are broken on a macro level that affects each individual countries. But if it does collapse, what will surely happen is that countries will work together to find a solution quickly, because if they don't, they will be plunged back into war. And it's in most countries' best interest to avoid that outcome. What is going on in Ukraine is a glimpse of what happens if the European family falls apart. It is something that reminds them of what the past held. This alliance will only fall apart if infighting starts. But for now, it seems stable. Thanks for watching.